Close your eyes now and take a slow, deep breath in through your nose, drawing in stillness and serenity. Hold it gently for a moment, feeling the air fill your lungs like water filling a tranquil pond. And now release it softly through your mouth, letting all the tension and noise of the day flow out of your body like cherry blossoms carried away on a spring breeze. Tonight, we're traveling together on a peaceful journey back through time, to ancient Japan, to a land where mist clings to mountain slopes like silk veils, where the scent of pine and plum blossoms fills the air, where water flows over smooth stones in temple gardens, and where every season brings its own particular beauty, celebrated and honored for over 1,000 years. Imagine yourself standing on a gentle hillside in the early morning light. Before you stretches a landscape of extraordinary delicacy and grace. Terraced rice paddies reflect the pale sky like mirrors, their surfaces perfectly still. In the distance, Mount Fuji rises above the morning haze, its snow-capped peak catching the first rays of sunrise, glowing soft pink and gold against the blue. This sacred mountain has been worshipped in Japan since ancient times, considered the dwelling place of the kami, spirits that inhabit all natural things. The air is cool and clean, carrying with it the subtle fragrance of cedar and hinoki cypress, those aromatic woods that have been used in Japanese temple construction for over 1,400 years. You can hear the gentle sound of water somewhere nearby, perhaps a mountain stream making its way down through moss-covered rocks, or the rhythmic drip of a bamboo fountain in a distant garden. Water has always been sacred in Japan, used for purification rituals at shrines and temples, its sound creating a peaceful backdrop to contemplation and prayer. Take another deep breath and let yourself sink even deeper into this tranquil place. The sky above you is brightening from deep indigo to the palest blue, soft as the inside of a seashell. A few wisps of cloud drift across the morning sky, moving so slowly they seem barely to move at all. Japanese poets have watched these same clouds for over a millennium, finding in their transient beauty a reminder of Mono no Aware, the poignant awareness of impermanence, the bittersweet recognition that all beautiful things must fade. In the valley below, you can see a small village nestled among bamboo groves and flowering trees. Smoke rises gently from thatched roofs, thin vertical lines that dissolve into the morning air. The village has stood here for generations, perhaps centuries, its residents living according to rhythms established in the Heian period, which lasted from 794 to 1185 CE and is remembered as Japan's classical age of courtly refinement and artistic achievement. You begin to walk slowly down the hillside toward the village, your footsteps quiet on the narrow path. There's no hurry, no sense of urgency. Time feels different here, more spacious and forgiving, as if each moment contains within it the possibility of perfect peace. The path winds between stone lanterns covered with moss, their granite surfaces weathered by centuries of rain and snow. These lanterns were originally placed to light the way to temples and shrines, but they also serve as reminders of the Buddhist teaching that wisdom illuminates the darkness of ignorance. As you walk, you pass beneath cherry trees, their branches still bare in this early spring morning, but you know that in just a few weeks they will burst into clouds of pale pink blossoms. The Japanese have celebrated cherry blossom season, called Hanami, for over 1,000 years, gathering beneath the flowering trees to contemplate beauty and impermanence. The blossoms last only a week or two before falling, and this brief perfection makes them all the more precious, a living metaphor for the fleeting nature of life itself. The morning light grows stronger, and you can feel its gentle warmth beginning to touch your face and hands. A bird calls somewhere in the bamboo grove, perhaps in a gisu, the Japanese bush warbler whose song has been celebrated in poetry since the 8th century, when it was mentioned in the Manyoshu, Japan's oldest existing collection of poetry. The bird's voice rises and falls in a melody that seems to speak of spring's arrival, of renewal and hope. The silence wraps around you gently, broken only by natural sounds, the whisper of wind through bamboo, the distant murmur of water, the soft call of birds greeting the dawn. Everything feels perfectly still, as though the world is holding its breath, waiting for the day to truly begin. This quality of the meaningful pause, the space between things, is fundamental to Japanese aesthetics, appearing in music, poetry, garden design, and the rhythms of daily life. As you approach the village, you notice how harmoniously it fits into the landscape, as though it grew here naturally rather than being built by human hands. The houses are constructed with wooden frames and walls of wattle, plaster, and paper, their roofs thatched with rice straw in thick layers that will shed rain and provide insulation from both summer heat and winter cold. The steep pitch of these thatched roofs developed in areas with heavy snowfall, allowing snow to slide off easily and preventing collapse under its weight. You pass through the village entrance marked by a simple wooden torii gate, painted a deep vermilion red. The torii is a sacred threshold marking the boundary between the mundane world and the sacred space of the shrine beyond. The tradition of painting torii gates red dates back over 1,000 years, the color believed to ward off evil spirits and represent the sun's life-giving energy. The bright color stands out beautifully against the muted greens and browns of the natural landscape. The village streets are narrow and peaceful, swept clean by residents who rise before dawn to tend to their homes and gardens. This practice of careful maintenance and cleanliness is deeply rooted in Shinto tradition, which emphasizes purity and the removal of impurity through regular cleaning and purification rituals. Even the humblest home would have a small shrine where the family honored their ancestors and the local kami, maintaining these sacred spaces with devoted care. You notice a woman kneeling beside a small stream that runs through the village, washing vegetables in the clear, cold water. She works with quiet concentration, her movements economical and practiced. She wears a simple kimono of indigo-dyed cotton, the color deep and rich. Indigo dyeing in Japan, called azome, has been practiced for over 400 years, using fermented indigo leaves to create colors ranging from pale sky blue to nearly black. The process required skill and patience, and indigo-dyed fabrics were treasured for their beauty and the way the color deepened with age and wear. Near the stream, you see a small watermill turning slowly, powered by the flowing water. Water wheels have been used in Japan since at least the 7th century, originally for irrigation and grinding grain. The gentle creaking of the wooden wheel and the splash of water create a rhythmic sound, peaceful and constant, a meditation on the ceaseless flow of time and nature's patient power. The woman at the stream looks up and offers you a gentle smile, bowing slightly in greeting. The Japanese tradition of bowing, which developed over centuries, expresses respect, gratitude, and humility. Different depths of bow indicate different levels of formality and respect, and even today this graceful gesture maintains social harmony and acknowledges the dignity of every person. You return the bow and continue through the village, passing houses with sliding doors made of paper stretched over wooden frames, shoji screens that glow softly when lit from within, transforming homes into lanterns. These screens, which became common in aristocratic homes during the Heian period and spread to commoners' homes later, allow light to enter while maintaining privacy. They can be removed entirely in summer to allow air to flow through the house, adapting to seasonal needs. Near the center of the village, you notice a small building with a thatched roof from which comes the rhythmic sound of weaving. Inside, you can glimpse a woman working at a traditional loom, creating fabric that will become clothing or household textiles. The tradition of silk weaving in Japan dates back over 1,500 years, brought from China along with Buddhism and other cultural practices. Japanese weavers developed their own distinctive techniques, creating fabrics like haburi and churamin, known for their luster and subtle texture. Everything feels perfectly still here in the village, despite the quiet activity of daily life. The morning routines unfold with a quality of mindfulness and presence, each task performed with attention and care. This approach to daily activities reflects Zen Buddhist teachings that enlightenment can be found not in special practices but in fully engaging with whatever task is at hand, sweeping, cooking, washing, walking, with complete awareness and presence. From the village, your journey takes you toward Mount Fuji, that perfect cone-shaped mountain that has inspired artists, poets, and pilgrims for over 1,000 years. The path leads upward through forests of cedar and cypress, the air growing cooler and more fragrant as you climb. The trees here are ancient, some having stood for 300 or 400 years, their massive trunks wrapped with sacred shimanawa, twisted ropes of rice straw that mark them as dwelling places of kami. Mount Fuji, called Fuji-san in Japanese, rises 12,388 feet above sea level, making it Japan's highest peak. It's an active volcano, though it last erupted in 1707, and its nearly perfect symmetrical cone has made it an object of reverence and artistic inspiration throughout Japanese history. The mountain appears in countless woodblock prints, paintings, and poems, always representing something beyond itself, permanence, transcendence, the sacred manifest in physical form. The forest path is carpeted with moss, bright green and impossibly soft, covering stones and fallen logs like velvet. Japan's humid climate creates ideal conditions for moss, and over 2,500 species grow throughout the country. Moss has been cultivated in Japanese gardens for over 1,000 years, appreciated for its subtle beauty and the sense of age and tranquility it brings to a space. The most famous moss gardens, like those at Seoji Temple in Kyoto, contain over 100 varieties of moss, creating a landscape of infinite shades of green. As you climb higher, you pass stone markers placed by pilgrims who have made this journey for centuries. Climbing Mount Fuji as a spiritual practice became popular during the Edo period, from 1603 to 1868, when ordinary people gained more freedom to travel. Thousands would make the pilgrimage each summer, climbing through the night to reach the summit at dawn, seeking purification and blessing from the mountain's kami. Even today, over 200,000 people climb Fuji each year during the brief summer climbing season. You pause at a small shrine built into the mountainside, its wooden structure weathered to silver gray by centuries of rain and snow. The shrine is simple, just a roof and open side sheltering a small altar where offerings of rice, sake, and flowers have been placed. A priest or pilgrim must come regularly to maintain this remote shrine, climbing the mountain path to honor the kami and keep the sacred space clean and cared for. The sound of water draws your attention to a stream flowing over rocks beside the path. You cup your hands and drink, and the water is so cold it makes your teeth ache, so pure it tastes of stone and sky. Mountain water has always been considered sacred in Japan, believed to possess purifying properties. Before entering shrines, visitors ritually wash their hands and mouth at a temazuya, a water basin provided for this purpose, a practice that originated in ancient Shinto purification rites. The forest opens up as you reach a higher elevation, and suddenly the view expands. You can see the valley far below, the village a tiny cluster of roofs, the rice paddies like fragments of mirror catching the morning light. Above you, the mountain's summit rises clear and close, its snow-covered peak brilliant white against the deepening blue of the sky. The silence up here is profound, broken only by the wind moving through the pines and the distant cry of a hawk circling in the clear air. Everything feels perfectly still, suspended between earth and heaven, between the mundane and the sacred. You understand why ancient people believed this mountain was the dwelling place of the kami, why pilgrims climbed here seeking enlightenment and purification. There is something in the mountain's presence that speaks to something deep within the human soul, a reminder of beauty, power, and transcendence that exists beyond our small human concerns. Descending from the mountain, your journey brings you to a Zen Buddhist temple complex, its buildings arranged around carefully tended gardens that have been maintained for over 500 years. The temple was built during the Muromachi period, from 1336 to 1573, when Zen Buddhism profoundly influenced Japanese culture, shaping not just religious practice but also aesthetics, poetry, tea ceremony, and garden design. You approach through a wooden gate, its hinges worn smooth by centuries of opening and closing. The path leads through a garden of carefully raked gravel representing water, with large rocks placed to suggest islands or mountains. This is a karasansui, or dry landscape garden, a distinctly Japanese form that emerged in the medieval period when Zen monks created gardens for meditation using only rocks, gravel, and occasionally moss, without any water or plants. The most famous karasansui garden is at Ryoan-ji Temple in Kyoto, created in the late 15th century. It contains 15 rocks arranged in groups on a bed of white gravel, yet from any viewing point, at least one rock is always hidden from view. This garden has inspired contemplation and debate for over 500 years, with viewers finding in its austere composition metaphors for islands in the sea, clouds in the sky, or Buddhist teachings about the nature of reality and perception. You sit on the wooden veranda of the temple's meditation hall, looking out at the garden. The gravel has been raked in parallel lines this morning, the patterns perfect and precise. A monk rakes these gardens every day, a practice that is itself a form of meditation. The act of raking requires complete attention, a merging of mind and body with the task at hand. This exemplifies the Zen teaching that enlightenment is found not in withdrawal from the world but in complete engagement with every activity, no matter how mundane. The silence wraps around you gently, as tangible as the cool morning air. In Zen Buddhism, which was brought to Japan from China in the 12th and 13th centuries by monks like Eisai and Dogen, silence and sitting meditation, zazen, are central practices. Practitioners sit in silence for hours, observing their breath and their thoughts without attachment, gradually developing a mind that is clear, present, and undisturbed by the constant commentary of ego and desire. A young monk appears, walking slowly along the corridor that surrounds the garden. He moves with extraordinary grace and attention, each step deliberate and mindful. This practice of walking meditation, called kinhin, alternates with sitting meditation during long meditation sessions. It demonstrates that meditative awareness is not confined to sitting still but can be maintained during movement, eating, working, during every activity of daily life. The temple buildings themselves embody Zen aesthetic principles. The wood is unpainted, allowed to age naturally to shades of gray and silver. The architecture is simple and unadorned, finding beauty in natural materials and honest construction rather than in decoration or display. This aesthetic, which influenced everything from tea houses to contemporary minimalism, reflects the Zen teaching that true nature is revealed when all unnecessary elements are removed, when things are allowed to be simply what they are. In the distance, you hear the sound of a bell being struck, a deep, resonant tone that seems to hang in the air for minutes, gradually fading into silence. Temple bells in Japan can weigh several tons and produce sounds of extraordinary depth and purity. The bell at Kyonin Temple in Kyoto, cast in 1636, weighs over 74 tons and requires 17 monks to ring it. On New Year's Eve, temples throughout Japan ring their bells 108 times, representing the 108 earthly desires that Buddhism teaches humans must overcome to reach enlightenment. From the Zen temple, a stone path leads through a garden to a small tea house, its thatched roof barely visible among carefully pruned pines and maples. This is a chishitsu, a rustic hut built specifically for the tea ceremony, that highly refined ritual that transforms the simple act of preparing and drinking tea into a meditation on beauty, impermanence, and mindful presence. The tea ceremony, called shinoyu or seido, developed its present form in the 16th century, largely through the work of Sino Rikyu, who emphasized simplicity, rusticity, and spiritual depth over the elaborate displays favored by earlier tea masters. Rikyu established 4 principles for tea ceremony: harmony, respect, purity, and tranquility. These principles extend beyond tea to encompass an entire approach to life and relationships. You pause at a stone water basin called a tsukubai, where guests ritually purify themselves before entering the tea house. The basin is deliberately placed low, requiring guests to bend down in a gesture of humility. You ladle water over your hands and rinse your mouth, the cool water refreshing and cleansing. This purification ritual connects the tea ceremony to ancient Shinto practices, reminding participants to leave behind the dust and concerns of the outer world before entering the sacred space of the tea room. The entrance to the tea house is a small sliding door called a nijiraguchi, only about 2 feet high, requiring everyone, even samurai lords, to crawl through on their hands and knees, leaving their swords outside. This tiny entrance, introduced by Sino Rikyu, symbolizes the equality of all people within the tea room and the necessity of humility when entering a sacred space. Once inside, social rank and worldly status are meant to disappear, leaving only the shared experience of tea. Inside, the tea room is small and dim, lit only by natural light filtering through shoji screens. The room measures just 4.5 tatami mats, about 9 feet square, creating an intimate space where host and guests sit close together. The walls are of rough plaster and earth tones, the ceiling of woven bamboo, the posts and beams of natural wood with bark still attached. This deliberate rusticity, called wabi-sabi, finds beauty in imperfection, impermanence, and incompleteness, celebrating the marks of time and use rather than pristine perfection. The tea master enters through a separate door, moving with serene grace. Every gesture has been refined over centuries of practice, The way she picks up the bamboo scoop, the arc of her hand as she wipes the tea bowl, the angle at which she places the tea whisk. These movements are not arbitrary but have been passed down through generations, each detail considered and meaningful. Watching her prepare tea is like watching a dancer perform a centuries-old choreography, each movement both precise and flowing. She places powdered green tea, matcha, into a ceramic bowl. Matcha is made from tea leaves that have been shaded for several weeks before harvest, then dried and ground into a fine powder using stone mills. This process produces tea with a bright green color and a rich, slightly bitter flavor quite different from steeped tea. The tradition of powdered tea was brought to Japan from China by Zen monks in the 12th century and became central to Zen monastery life before spreading to the aristocracy and eventually to commoners. Hot water is added from an iron kettle sitting over a charcoal fire set into the floor. The tea master whisks the tea and water together with a bamboo whisk, creating a frothy, jade-green liquid. She rotates the bowl so that its most beautiful side faces you, then presents it with both hands, bowing slightly. You receive the bowl with both hands, appreciating its weight and texture, rotating it so that you don't drink from the front, and take a sip. The tea is slightly bitter, hot, with an umami depth that seems to spread through your entire mouth. You take 2 more sips, then a final slurp to show appreciation, before wiping the rim and rotating the bowl back to examine its form. Tea bowls used in ceremony are often valuable works of art, made by renowned potters, but the most prized are often those that appear simple or even flawed, embodying wabi-sabi aesthetic principles. A tea bowl with an asymmetrical shape, a drip of glaze, or an uneven color might be valued more highly than one that is technically perfect. The silence in the tea room wraps around you gently, broken only by the whisper of the tea master's silk kimono as she moves, the soft sound of the bamboo scoop against the ceramic tea caddy, the gentle bubbling of water in the iron kettle. Everything feels perfectly still, perfectly present, as though this moment contains all time within itself, past, present, and future dissolved in the simple act of preparing and sharing tea. Time flows forward, and your journey brings you to the peak of cherry blossom season, Hanami, when all of Japan seems to hold its breath, waiting for the blossoms to open. You find yourself in Kyoto, the ancient capital that served as the emperor's residence for over 1,000 years, from 794 until 1868. The city is filled with temples, shrines, and gardens, many dating back to the Heian period, when Japanese culture reached its classical flowering. You're walking along the Philosopher's Path, a canal-side trail lined with hundreds of cherry trees that create a tunnel of blossoms overhead. The path is named for Nishida Kitaro, one of Japan's most famous philosophers, who walked here daily in meditation during the early 20th century. But people have walked beneath these cherry blossoms for much longer, contemplating beauty and impermanence since the trees were planted in the early 1900s. The cherry trees are in full bloom, their branches heavy with pale pink flowers. The blossoms are so delicate they seem almost translucent, glowing in the soft morning light. A gentle breeze stirs the branches, and petals begin to fall, drifting down like snow, landing on the path, floating on the canal's surface, catching in your hair. This moment, when the blossoms are falling but the trees are still mostly in bloom, is considered the most beautiful and poignant moment of Hanami season. Cherry blossoms have been celebrated in Japanese culture since at least the 8th century, when they appeared frequently in the poetry of the Nara period. During the Heian period, the imperial court held elaborate cherry blossom viewing parties, with nobles composing poetry while sitting beneath the flowering trees. The tradition spread throughout society over the centuries, and today millions of people participate in hanami, gathering with friends and family to celebrate beauty in spring. The blossoms last only a week or two, and this brevity is central to their significance. The Japanese aesthetic concept of mono no aware, the poignant awareness of impermanence, finds perfect expression in cherry blossoms. Their beauty is inseparable from their transience. They are precious precisely because they won't last. This recognition of impermanence is deeply rooted in Buddhist teaching that all things are impermanent and that attachment to what must pass causes suffering. You sit on a bench beside the canal, watching petals drift on the water's surface. A young woman passes by in a kimono of pale blue with a pattern of white cranes. The kimono is held closed with an obi, a wide sash wrapped around the waist and tied in an elaborate knot at the back. The tradition of wearing kimono for special occasions like hanami continues today, though during the Edo period, elaborate rules govern kimono color, pattern, and fabric based on the wearer's age, status, and the season. These rules have largely disappeared, but wearing kimono remains a way to honor tradition and mark special moments. The sound of water flowing in the canal mingles with the soft rustling of cherry branches and the voices of other viewers walking the path. Everyone speaks softly, as if too loud a voice might cause more petals to fall. There's a reverence in the air, a shared recognition that this beauty is fleeting, that these blossoms will be gone within days, and that this moment, this exact configuration of light, blossom, and breeze, will never come again. A group of elderly people have spread a blue tarp beneath one of the cherry trees and are sharing a meal, rice balls wrapped in seaweed, pickled vegetables, sweet pink and white mochi. This tradition of picnicking under cherry trees goes back centuries, transforming hanami into a social celebration as well as an aesthetic one. Friends, families, and co-workers gather to eat, drink, and appreciate the blossoms together, strengthening social bonds while acknowledging the beauty and impermanence of life. Everything feels perfectly still, despite the gentle fall of petals and the flow of water. Time seems to have slowed, each moment expanding to hold infinite peace. This quality of being fully present, of allowing awareness to rest completely in what is happening right now without grasping or rejecting, is at the heart of Japanese aesthetic and spiritual practices. Whether practicing tea ceremony, sitting in meditation, or viewing cherry blossoms, the invitation is always the same: be here, be now, be fully present to this fleeting, precious moment. From the cherry blossom mind path, your journey takes you to the garden of a samurai residence from the Edo period. The samurai were the military nobility of Japan, originally provincial warriors who became increasingly important during the late Heian period and eventually dominated Japanese society during the Kamakura period, from 1185 to 1333, when the first shogunate was established. The garden you enter is different from the Zen gardens you visited earlier. This is a stroll garden, designed to be experienced by walking along carefully planned paths that reveal new views and scenes with each turn. Such gardens became popular during the Edo period, especially among wealthy samurai and merchants who created elaborate landscapes incorporating hills, ponds, bridges, lanterns, and carefully placed stones and trees. A pond lies at the garden center, its surface perfectly still, reflecting the sky and surrounding trees like polished bronze. Koi swim lazily beneath the surface, their scales flashing orange, white, and gold. Koi breeding became an art form in Japan during the Edo period, with particular color patterns and fin shapes prized and pursued through careful selective breeding. The fish represent perseverance and strength. According to legend, a koi that swims upstream and climbs a waterfall becomes a dragon. You cross a gracefully arched bridge, it's weathered wood smooth from centuries of footsteps. The bridge connects two shores, symbolically linking different states of being, from ignorance to enlightenment, from this world to the pure land of Buddhist paradise. Many Japanese gardens incorporate bridges as elements that are both functional and deeply symbolic, inviting visitors to cross from one realm to another. On the far side of the pond, you notice a stone lantern covered in moss, its carved surface is softened by time. Stone lanterns were originally placed near temples and shrines to illuminate paths, but they became important aesthetic elements in gardens, appreciated for their form and the way they age. The most valuable lanterns are often those that show the patina of centuries, moss covering their surfaces, edges softened by weathering, the stone darkened by rain and snow. The garden includes careful plantings that provide interest in every season: plum blossoms in late winter, cherry blossoms in spring, irises and azaleas in early summer, maples that turn brilliant red in autumn, and the stark beauty of bare branches in snow in winter. This attention to seasonal change reflects the Japanese aesthetic of aware, the sensitive appreciation of each season's unique beauty and the melancholy recognition that each season must give way to the next. You pause beside a small waterfall where water flows over moss-covered rocks, creating a sound like gentle rain. The placement of these rocks required great skill and aesthetic sensitivity, each stone chosen for its color, shape, and the way it relates to the others, positioned to create naturalistic compositions that appear uncontrived while actually being carefully designed. Master garden designers served aristocratic and wealthy samurai families for generations, passing their knowledge from father to son, developing regional styles and signature techniques. In one corner of the garden, you notice a small tea house, its design deliberately rustic, thatched roof, walls of natural wood and woven bamboo, a low entrance requiring visitors to duck or crawl inside. This aesthetic of rustic simplicity was developed by tea masters like Sino Rikyu, who served the powerful warlord Toyotomi Hideyoshi in the 16th century. Rikyu's teaching that tea ceremonies should emphasize simplicity and spiritual depth over material display influenced not just tea culture but Japanese aesthetics more broadly, establishing wabi-sabi, beauty in imperfection and impermanence, as a core aesthetic principle. The silence in the garden wraps around you gently, broken only by natural sounds, water flowing, wind moving through pines, the occasional call of a bird. Everything feels perfectly still, perfectly balanced, as though each element, stone, water, plant, space, exists in perfect harmony with every other element. This quality of wa, or harmony, has been fundamental to Japanese culture for centuries, emphasizing balance, cooperation, and the subordination of individual desires to the greater good of the group. Time flows onward, and your journey brings you to the pleasure quarters of Edo, the city that would later be renamed Tokyo, during its flourishing in the 18th century. This was the height of the Edo period, when Japan was at peace under the rule of the Tokugawa shogunate, and urban culture flourished in the growing cities of Edo, Kyoto, and Osaka. You find yourself on a street in Yoshiwara, the licensed pleasure quarter that existed from 1617 until 1958. This district was called the Floating World, Ukiyo, a term that originally had Buddhist connotations of life's transience but came to mean the realm of sensual pleasure and entertainment, a world apart from the rigid social hierarchies and moral strictness of Edo society. The street is lined with wooden buildings, their facades elegant and inviting. Paper lanterns hang from the eaves, glowing softly in the gathering dusk. The air carries the scent of incense, sake, and the perfume worn by the courtesans, wealthy women who were the celebrities of their era, setting fashion trends, inspiring art and literature, and sometimes wielding considerable influence through their relationships with wealthy merchants and powerful samurai. You notice a display of ukiyo-e prints in a shop window, woodblock prints depicting beautiful women, kabuki actors, and landscapes. The art form of ukiyo-e developed during the Edo period, with artists like Hokusai and Hiroshige creating images that would eventually influence European artists like Van Gogh and Monet. Hokusai's series 36 Views of Mount Fuji, created around 1830, included the Great Wave off Kanagawa, which has become one of the most recognizable images in world art. These woodblock prints required collaboration between several specialists: the artist who designed the image, the carver who cut the design into wooden blocks, a separate block for each color, the printer who applied pigments and pressed the paper, and the publisher who coordinated the project. A complex print might require over 20 blocks, each precisely registered to create the final image. The process demanded extraordinary skill and patience, with each print requiring multiple impressions to build up layers of color. You hear the sound of a shamisen, a three-stringed instrument played with a large plectrum, drifting from a nearby tea house. The distinctive twanging sound of the shamisen became the signature sound of the Floating World, accompanying performances of traditional songs and narrative music. The instrument was brought to Japan from China in the 16th century and quickly became central to several genres of Japanese music, including the narrative jururi that accompanied bunraku puppet theater. The shamisen's music mingles with the soft sounds of wooden geta, traditional elevated sandals, on the wooden walkway. The distinctive clip-clop sound of geta has echoed through Japanese streets for centuries, a reminder that footwear in Japan was traditionally designed to keep the feet elevated above wet or muddy ground while remaining easy to remove, since shoes are never worn inside Japanese homes. You pass a shop selling hair ornaments, elaborate combs, pins, and decorative pieces made of lacquered wood, tortoiseshell, and sometimes gold. During the Edo period, a woman's hairstyle indicated her age, marital status, and social position, and wealthy women spent considerable time and money on elaborate arrangements secured with decorative pins. Some of these ornaments were works of art, commissioned from master craftsmen and passed down as family heirlooms. Everything feels perfectly still, despite the activity and entertainment of the floating world around you. Even in this realm of pleasure and transience, there's an underlying awareness of mono no aware, the recognition that all beautiful things must fade, that youth and beauty are fleeting, that every pleasure carries within it the seed of its own ending. This bittersweet awareness doesn't diminish enjoyment but enriches it, making each moment more precious because it cannot last. As evening deepens, your journey brings you to a matsuri, a festival celebrating the local shrine's deity. Festivals have been held in Japan since ancient times, blending Shinto religious observance with community celebration. Every shrine has an annual festival, and larger shrines might host several throughout the year, marking seasonal changes, agricultural cycles, or important dates in local history. The festival is centered around the shrine, which stands at the top of a long stone staircase lined with paper lanterns, their warm light creating a path leading upward into darkness. The shrine itself is painted bright vermilion red, its curved roofline distinctive against the night sky. This architectural style, with curved eaves and the use of bright colors, was influenced by Chinese Buddhist temple architecture but adapted to Japanese aesthetics and climate. The air is filled with the mingled scents of festival foods, yakitori grilled chicken skewers, takoyaki octopus balls, taiyaki fish-shaped cakes filled with sweet bean paste, and various other treats sold from temporary stalls lining the approach to the shrine. Festival food is an essential part of Matsuri, with vendors often traveling from festival to festival throughout the year, following a circuit that has existed for generations. You hear the sound of taiko drums, large drums played with thick wooden sticks, their deep, resonant boom carrying across the entire festival ground. Taiko drumming has ancient roots in Japan, originally used in religious ceremonies, agricultural rituals, and military contexts. The drums are made from single pieces of wood hollowed out and covered with animal hide stretched tight, producing sounds that range from deep thunder to sharp cracks depending on where and how the drum is struck. People are wearing yukata, casual summer kimono made of cotton rather than silk. The yukata are in traditional patterns, indigo blue with white geometric designs, or cheerful colors with flowers, goldfish, or fireworks. Wearing yukata to summer festivals is a tradition that continues even today, connecting modern celebrants to centuries of festival goers who came before them. Children run through the crowd carrying candy apples and goldfish in bags of water, prizes from festival games. One traditional game, Kingyosukoi, involves trying to scoop goldfish from a tank using a fragile paper scoop that dissolves in water. The game requires a delicate touch and quick movements, teaching patience and coordination while providing entertainment. You watch as a portable shrine, called the Makashi, is carried through the festival grounds on the shoulders of dozens of men and women wearing matching festival coats. The Makashi. You watch as a portable shrine, called the Makashi, is carried through the festival grounds on the shoulders of dozens of men and women wearing matching festival coats. The Makashi is ornately decorated with gold leaf and carved phoenixes, believed to house the kami temporarily during the festival procession. The carriers chant rhythmically as they bounce and sway the shrine, a tradition meant to entertain and energize the deity within. The procession moves slowly through the crowd, and you follow, drawn by the hypnotic rhythm of the chanting and drums. Paper lanterns sway gently overhead, their light casting dancing shadows on the faces of the celebrants. Everything moves in rhythm, feet, voices, the swaying shrine, creating a sense of unity and shared purpose that transcends individual identity. At the shrine entrance, a priest in white robes and a tall black hat performs a blessing, waving a haraguchi, a wooden wand with white paper streamers, in purifying motions. This tool has been used in Shinto rituals for over 1,000 years to symbolically sweep away impurities and negative energies. The paper rustles softly in the evening breeze, a sound both delicate and sacred. You climb the stone steps toward the shrine, passing beneath torii gates that mark each threshold between the ordinary world below and the increasingly sacred space above. At the top, you pause to catch your breath and look back at the festival spread below, the lights, the movement, the celebration all seeming small and distant from this elevated perspective. The silence wraps around you gently here, despite the festival sounds drifting upward. You can hear the wind moving through the ancient cryptomeria trees that surround the shrine, their evergreen branches swaying in the darkness. These trees, planted centuries ago, stand as silent witnesses to countless festivals, countless generations who have climbed these same steps to honor the kami and seek blessings. As the festival continues below, you discover a quiet garden behind the shrine, designed to be viewed by moonlight. This tsukimi garden was created specifically for moon viewing, a practice that became popular during the Heian period when aristocrats would gather on autumn evenings to compose poetry while contemplating the full moon's reflection in still ponds. The moon rises over the garden, nearly full, its silver light transforming the landscape into something ethereal and dreamlike. The pond surface becomes liquid silver, perfectly reflecting the moon and surrounding trees. Moon viewing reached its height during the Mid-Autumn Moon Festival, when people would offer rice dumplings and seasonal grasses while appreciating the moon's beauty, a tradition that continues today. You sit on a wooden platform built over the water, your feet just inches above the pond surface. The platform's wood is smooth and cool, worn by centuries of visitors who sat here on moonlit nights, seeking the same peace and beauty you find now. The air is fragrant with kinmokusei, sweet osmanthus flowers, their honey sweet scent particularly intense at night. Osmanthus trees bloom in autumn, their tiny orange flowers producing one of the most beloved fragrances in Japanese culture. The scent has been described in poetry for over 1,000 years, often associated with the moon and autumn's poignant beauty. The flowers are so small they're almost invisible, yet their perfume fills the entire garden. In the pond, you notice white lotus flowers close for the night, their petals folded like praying hands. The lotus holds deep significance in Buddhism, symbolizing purity rising from mud, enlightenment emerging from the suffering of existence. During the day, these flowers would open to reveal centers of gold, but now they rest, waiting for morning light. The moon's reflection trembles slightly on the water's surface as a gentle breeze passes through. This image of the moon's reflection, beautiful but intangible, real but not graspable, appears often in Zen teaching as a metaphor for the nature of reality itself. All things are like the moon's reflection, seemingly solid and real, but actually impermanent and insubstantial, constantly changing. You hear the soft sound of a shishirodoshi, a bamboo fountain that fills with water, tips to empty, then falls back with a hollow knock against a stone. This device was originally designed to scare deer and boar from gardens, but its rhythmic sound became appreciated for its own sake, marking time in a garden with patient, regular intervals. Each knock creates a moment of sound, then silence rushes back, deeper than before. Everything feels perfectly still in this moonlit garden. The festival sounds from below are distant now, like memories of celebration rather than actual noise. Here, there is only moonlight, water, fragrance, and the deep peace that comes from being fully present in a moment of pure beauty, without desire for it to be different or fear that it will end. As night deepens, your journey takes you higher into the mountains to a remote temple complex that has stood here for over 800 years. The approach is steep, the stone path worn smooth by countless pilgrims who have made this climb seeking wisdom, healing, or simply a place apart from the world's chaos. The temple was founded during the Kamakura period by a monk who retreated here to practice in solitude. Over centuries, other buildings were added, meditation halls, libraries, gardens, creating a complex where monks could dedicate themselves completely to Buddhist practice, far from the distractions of city life. You arrive at the temple gate just as the moon clears the mountain peaks, flooding the courtyard with silver light. The main hall rises before you, its massive wooden pillars supporting a curved roof of gray tiles. The building method, using interlocking wooden beams without nails, was perfected over centuries and allows structures to flex during earthquakes rather than collapse. Some temples built this way have stood for over 1,000 years. The hall's wooden doors stand open, and inside you can see golden Buddha statues illuminated by candlelight. The largest statue is of Amida Buddha, hands held in the gesture of meditation, face serene and compassionate. Amida Buddhism became widespread during the Heian and Kamakura periods, teaching that anyone who called upon Amida Buddha with sincere faith would be reborn in the Pure Land, a paradise where enlightenment could be easily attained. You enter the hall quietly, the wooden floor smooth and cool beneath your feet. The air inside smells of incense, sandalwood and aloeswood, fragrances that have perfumed Buddhist temples for over 1,500 years. Incense in Japan is not just for pleasant scent but is considered an offering, its rising smoke carrying prayers upward, its fragrance purifying the space and the minds of practitioners. In one corner, you notice a monk sitting in meditation, his posture perfectly upright, his breathing slow and regular. He has probably been sitting there for hours, and will sit for hours more, practicing the zazen that is central to Zen training. This practice of sitting meditation was brought to Japan from China and refined by Japanese masters into a practice of extraordinary simplicity and depth. The silence wraps around you gently, broken only by the soft sound of your own breathing and the occasional distant ring of a small bell. This deep silence, cultivated through meditation practice and maintained through the discipline of monastic life, is considered essential for spiritual development. In silence, the constant chatter of thoughts gradually quiets, allowing deeper wisdom to emerge. You find a cushion and sit, your back straight, your hands resting in your lap. The meditation posture developed over centuries to balance alertness and relaxation, upright enough to maintain clear awareness, relaxed enough to sit for long periods without strain. As you settle into stillness, you begin to understand why people have sought out places like this for over 1,000 years. Everything feels perfectly still here in the mountain temple. Time seems to have stopped, or perhaps expanded infinitely, so that this single moment contains all time within itself. The boundary between yourself and your surroundings begins to soften, the cool air, the incense smoke, the candlelight, the silence, all of it flowing together in one seamless experience of presence and peace. Morning comes softly to the mountain temple, light gradually illuminating the valleys below. You wake to find a calligraphy master preparing for practice in a room overlooking the garden. He has set out his tools on a low table, an inkstone, an ink stick, brushes of various sizes, and sheets of white washi paper. Washi, traditional Japanese paper, has been made for over 1,300 years using fibers from the inner bark of mulberry, mitsumata, or gampi trees. The long fibers create paper that is both strong and translucent, able to absorb ink beautifully while lasting for centuries. Some documents written on washi during the Nara period, over 1,200 years ago, remain perfectly legible today. The master begins by grinding his ink stick against the inkstone, adding a few drops of water. This process of preparing ink is itself a meditation, requiring patience and attention. The grinding produces a quiet, rhythmic sound, and gradually the water darkens to deep black. Sumi ink, made from pine soot or oil soot mixed with animal glue, has been used in East Asian calligraphy and painting for over 2,000 years. When the ink is ready, the master selects a brush, dips it carefully, and begins to write. His hand moves across the paper with fluid grace, each stroke confident and complete. Japanese calligraphy, called shodo or the way of writing, is considered not just an art but a spiritual practice, a way of training the mind and expressing one's inner state through the brush. The character he writes is mu, emptiness or void, a central concept in Buddhism. The single character requires several strokes, each one flowing into the next with natural rhythm. The master's breathing synchronizes with his brush movements. Inhale, pause, exhale as the brush moves. This coordination of breath and movement helps achieve the state of mushin, no mind, where the ego steps aside and action flows spontaneously from a deeper source. Calligraphy became an essential art for educated people during the Heian period, when the beauty of one's handwriting was considered as important as the content of what was written. Letters exchanged between Heian courtiers were judged not only for their poetry but for the elegance of the calligraphy and the aesthetic quality of the paper, ink, and even the way the letter was folded. The master completes his character and sets down his brush. The ink is still wet, shining darkly on the white paper. He doesn't immediately look at what he's created but instead closes his eyes and takes a slow breath. This pause before evaluation helps maintain the meditative quality of practice, preventing the critical mind from interrupting the creative flow too quickly. After a moment, he opens his eyes and examines his work with quiet attention. The character is beautiful, strong yet fluid, balanced yet alive with energy. Each stroke shows the master's years of practice, his understanding not just of technique but of the deeper principles that technique serves. Yet he sets this paper aside and prepares to write again, knowing that mastery is not a destination but an endless process of refinement. You watch as he continues his practice, filling sheet after sheet with characters, each one similar yet unique, each one a fresh exploration of form, balance, and expression. The repetition is not boring but meditative, each iteration deepening understanding and skill. This approach to mastery, patient, incremental, accepting of imperfection while always striving to improve, reflects values that have shaped Japanese arts for centuries. Everything feels perfectly still in this quiet room. The only movement is the master's brush across paper, the only sound the whisper of bristles and the soft rustle of paper. Even these small movements and sounds seem to emerge from and return to silence, like waves rising from and falling back into the ocean. As your journey through ancient Japan draws to a close, you find yourself back on the hillside where you began, looking out over the landscape bathed in the soft light of evening. The terraced rice paddies below reflect the sky, now colored with the gentle pinks and golds of sunset. Mount Fuji rises in the distance, its snow-covered peak glowing with the day's last light. You take a slow, deep breath, drawing in the cool mountain air, fragrant with pine and earth. As you exhale, you feel yourself releasing any remaining tension, any lingering concerns or worries. They drift away like dandelion seeds on the breeze, carried off to dissolve in the vast sky. The journey you've taken tonight has led you through centuries of Japanese culture and wisdom, through gardens designed for meditation, temples devoted to spiritual practice, ceremonies that transform everyday activities into expressions of mindfulness and beauty. Each place you visited, each practice you observed, points toward the same essential truth, that peace and beauty are found not by escaping from life but by being fully present to it. The light continues to fade, and one by one, stars begin to appear in the darkening sky. The first star is Venus, the evening star that Japanese poets have watched for over 1,000 years, writing verses about its brilliant light appearing at twilight. More stars emerge, and soon the sky is filled with them, the same stars that shone on Heian courtiers composing poetry, on Zen monks in mountain meditation, on travelers making their way home along moonlit roads. You lie back on the soft grass of the hillside, looking up at the stars. The earth beneath you feels solid and supporting, holding you gently as a mother holds a child. The grass is cool and soft, and you can smell its green fragrance, mixed with the scent of wildflowers, tiny white blossoms whose names you don't know but whose beauty you can appreciate without naming. Your breathing has become slow and regular, each breath flowing in and out like gentle waves on a shore. Breath has been called the bridge between body and mind, between conscious and unconscious, between self and not self. As you continue breathing slowly and deeply, you feel yourself settling more completely into this present moment, this patch of earth beneath the evening sky. The silence wraps around you gently, like a soft blanket. This silence is not empty but full of the whisper of wind through grass, the distant murmur of water, the soft sounds of evening birds settling into their nests. It's the same silence that fills Zen gardens and tea rooms, mountain temples and moon-viewing pavilions. It's the silence from which all things emerge and to which all things return. You remember the cherry blossoms you saw, their petals falling like snow. You remember the tea master's graceful movements, each gesture perfected through years of practice. You remember the calligrapher's brush moving across paper, creating beauty that exists for a moment and then is released. You remember the moon's reflection on still water, beautiful but intangible, real but not graspable. All these memories drift through your mind like clouds across the evening sky, each one arising, existing for a moment, then dissolving back into spaciousness. You don't need to hold on to them or push them away. They simply are, like everything else, temporary, beautiful, part of the endless flow of experience. Everything feels perfectly still now. Your body has become heavy and relaxed, sinking into the earth's support. Your mind has become quiet and spacious, like a clear sky after storm clouds have passed. The boundary between yourself and your surroundings has softened. You are not separate from the evening air, the darkening sky, the stars beginning to shine with increasing brightness. The ancient Japanese concept of mu, emptiness, doesn't mean nothingness but rather the spacious awareness that underlies all experience, the vast openness from which all things arise and into which all things dissolve. This spaciousness is your true nature, always present, never disturbed, like the sky that remains clear and vast regardless of what weather patterns move through it. As you continue breathing slowly and deeply, you feel yourself releasing even these thoughts, letting go of even the desire to understand or hold on to anything. There's nothing you need to do, nowhere you need to go, nothing you need to become. You can simply rest here, in this moment, breathing in and breathing out, held by the earth, covered by the sky, part of the great cycle of existence that has continued for billions of years and will continue long after you're gone. The stars shine brighter as the sky darkens completely. You recognize a few constellations, patterns that human beings have projected onto the random distribution of stars for thousands of years, creating stories and meanings to help navigate both outer and inner space. But tonight you're not concerned with names or stories. You simply rest in the direct experience of starlight, ancient light that has traveled across vast distances to reach your eyes in this exact moment. Your breathing has become so slow and gentle now that you're barely aware of it. Each breath simply happens by itself, without effort or intention. Your body knows how to breathe, just as your heart knows how to beat, just as the earth knows how to turn. You don't need to control anything. You can trust the deep wisdom of your body, the ancient intelligence that has kept human beings alive for hundreds of thousands of years. Everything feels perfectly still, perfectly peaceful, perfectly complete. There's nowhere else you need to be, nothing else you need to do. The journey through ancient Japan has brought you back to yourself, to this simple moment of being alive, breathing, aware. And in this simplicity, in this ordinary, extraordinary moment, you find all the peace and beauty you've been seeking. The evening air has grown cooler, and you feel it on your face and hands, gentle and refreshing. Somewhere in the distance, you hear the sound of a temple bell, its deep tones spreading across the valley, marking the transition from day to night. The sound seems to hang in the air for a long time before gradually fading, and in the silence that follows, everything is perfectly still. Your eyes are closing now, becoming too heavy to hold open. That's perfectly natural, perfectly right. Let them close. Let yourself sink deeper into relaxation, deeper into peace. Your body is completely relaxed now, every muscle soft and loose, every breath flowing easily and naturally. There's nothing for you to do except rest, except allow sleep to come in its own time, in its own way. As you drift towards sleep, images from your journey may float through your mind, cherry blossoms falling, Mount Fuji at dawn, monks sitting in meditation, tea bowls cradled in careful hands, calligraphy brushes moving across white paper, the moon's reflection on still water. Let these images come and go like clouds passing across the sky. You don't need to hold on to them or follow them. Just let them drift through and dissolve. The silence has become complete now, vast and peaceful. In this silence, you can rest completely. In this silence, you can let go of everything, all your concerns, all your plans, all your memories, even your sense of being a separate self. You can dissolve into the spaciousness, becoming one with the evening air, the stars, the earth, the great emptiness that is also fullness. Sleep is coming now, gentle and natural, like night falling over the landscape. You don't need to chase it or force it. It comes by itself, in its own time, like all natural things. You simply rest here, breathing slowly, body relaxed, mind quiet, allowing sleep to arrive when it's ready. Everything feels perfectly still, perfectly peaceful, perfectly complete. You are safe, supported, held by the earth, covered by the sky, part of the endless flow of life, breathing in and breathing out, resting in this eternal moment, this spacious awareness, this perfect peace. And now, you sleep,